Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey,
Good afternoon, good evening. All right, Bogdan's on the way, so we can get started.
Hey guys.
Hi. All right, so we are all collected here as from the usual call member. So let me show my screen. All right, so it's September 28th, 2023. This is Aries V6 community call. Hyperledger antitrust policy is in effect, and let's dive into our agenda. Well, before we get any further, this is something I prepared here. It looks quite long. I don't think it's longer than usual. It just has more bullet points in it. But nevertheless, do you guys have anything you would like to add here? If your own topics or... Okay, then probably not. So we can go ahead with our starting discussion points here. So community updates. I have attended the last Monday Hyperledger AnonCreds 2.0 call. So just kind of put it out there. There was there's a nice note on the link here from the call. There was Mike Lauder there talking about Hyperledger Labs Agora project, which should be kind of like I guess closest comparison would be to Ursa, but Ursa was I don't know. Michael explained the difference between the two. Obviously, there's like different crypto here, different stuff with different kind of philosophy. Ursa was originally supposed to be a project for all of the Hyperledger projects. This is specifically for Aries and AnonCreds. So there's going to be a number of libraries he kind of donated. He worked on over the years and is now donating as a part of the Agora project. And then in Credex library, or I guess more accurately the AnonCreds library, and that will be then kind of all glued together, and it will be also the layer where the revocation model would be implemented or put together with the crypto components underneath. So that's where I've been this week. I didn't make it to the yesterday's Aries 4 group call, so I don't know what was happening there. Didn't have time to review the recording yet. Have you guys attended any of the meetings by chance, or anything community happening you're aware of?
No, not me.
Yeah, not me.
Okay, so then let's move ahead. Well, maybe to review back here, I think there was no discussion here on this point. So I don't know. It was supposed to be discussed in yesterday's Aries Vorgrove call. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, so I'm not sure they touched on it or not. I'll go ahead and review the recording. Just a quick check on the dependency loosening, if there's any news. Looks like not yet, at least not in the issue thread. Okay, so then mentorship. And before we get to any updates, I would just like to point out that I'm now working on deploying a Mediator. Well, planning to deploy Mediator, the simple relay project, and VCX agency on some public URL. Where all these services would be, considered very short-lived, the data in them, with some daily cleanups or something like that, some relatively short frequency, so people wouldn't rely on it. But it should be helpful for development. So there'll be these three services. I'll just need to, I guess, from the side, if you could, well, once the things are ready, whenever you're ready and are able to build a Docker container, you can just point me to that Docker repository, and I'll deploy that. Relay is something we need to build in Aries VCX, but it should be pretty simple. It's a very simple service, so it should be easy to containerize. And we do have container for the legacy agency, so that is being deployed right now. Back to the status updates. So again, we have Nayan here on the call. So do you have any updates you'd like to share?
Yes, I have a small update from last time, but it's in a good state, so I have something. Yes. Can I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay, so I hope you can see the diagram on the right side of my screen. So let me give a summary of like how the mediator project has been going and where we are right now. So previously, uh, before the past month, we had been working on the protocols side and the message passing side of the mediator protocols that we are interested in. That is forward message protocol, pickup protocol, and the mediator coordination protocol. So everything above the half of the diagram was being done previously. So yeah, these are the tick marks. So this were being done previously, and they exist in a separate repo called uh, some server something. Yeah, so it was being worked outside of Aries VCX repository, and like these were done before. They contain functions to parse messages into these protocol messages and to respond appropriately, and also to do the function of actually saving those messages and picking them up from the database. So over the past month, few weeks, what I've been doing is to work on the main crux of the project. That is, since we are going to be talking with Aries agents, uh, the mediator needs to speak Aries. So this here, the mediator Aries agent is what I've been working on. So I've been doing it modularly because each of them deals with some different aspect of the whole. So we've got to a good state now with the mediator Aries agent. That is, we now have a TOI with which we can instruct the server side to do something. And we have the mediator server side that uh, can talk to the Alice client here. So, as part of this sub project, I have completed presenting an OOB invitation and making a request from the Alice agent, that is the mediation request. And the mediator does respond properly to that, and we have a complete connection. So now, the next step is to actually merge these two. These aren't meant to be separate. It's supposed to be one mediator agent. So this week, what I've been working on is to actually merge these. So for this, these are the steps that have been taken. I've partially merged the two code bases. Now, one is a dependency of the other. The previous code, uh, all of these green tick marks, that is now residing outside of Aries VCX. But now I have made that a dependency of the Aries agent that I've been writing inside Aries VCX. So now this depends on the previous code. It's a strict dependency. There were some dependency conflicts. libnd, for example, requires 0.5.8 version of SQLX, and I was using a more recent version. So that involved having me reduce the required version on the XAMPP server side. But even after that, there were some workarounds required because SQLX previous to version 6 does not support macros without importing another uh, library. So it's in the code about why the workaround is required and such. We need to add another build dependencies on. Now, what is the current functionality that you can expect right now? So currently we are able to complete an Aries DITCOM connection, that is the OOB invite and the mediation request, the connection request and the connection response. So that is completed. And to test the integration, that is to test whether we are properly depending on the previous code, I have tried to create an account for the client when the mediator sees a connection request. So this is done using the mediator persistent state, and I can show a little demo. Right. So I have the mediator running on the left side here on some address, and this is our client. So what we need to first do is to pull an OB invite from the mediator. So we'll get just that. Here, I just go to the endpoint of the mediator where you can pick up the invitations. You put the invitation here in the client and ask for a connection. And there you see uh, a successful DITCOM connection does complete. And you can see in the logs here of the mediator server that we have created an account for the client. Yes. So that means that the integration of this Aries agent and the previous code is successful. Yeah. So this is the current state. Now, what to do forward? So right now, this creation of an account is happening using the previous database fields itself. And in that, we didn't have a field for the mediator side of the connection key. That is, we are saving the authentication key or the very key of the client inside the account, but we aren't saving the key that the mediator server uses to authenticate to the client. So the next part is going to be to add that field inside the database of the XAM server, and then to implement explicit UI in the client side so that it can make request of the forward message type and mediate request types. Yes, and then to other protocols. Yeah, that's it from me.
Nice, nice. That's looking good. It's gone a good way. Happy to see the connection establishing. It's an important milestone indeed. So yeah, I guess perhaps next week, given the progress you have made, I think maybe next week we would see the other protocols integrated um with the server, the mediator, right? Over the
Uh,
DITCOM.
yes, hopefully the mediator coordination protocol is the first one I'll be targeting. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the well, creation of an account is partially done now. I still need to add the fields for saving the own signing key of the mediator server. Then, like, there are other messages in the mediator coordination protocol, like adding keys for which you would like to receive forward messages and to list them out and all of those. So that is the first one I'll be targeting, and after that I'll be trying the forward message.
Mm-hmm. All right,
Yes.
sounds good. Sounds great. Thank you for the demo. And we can move ahead with our agenda.
Hey, that client implementation that you're planning on doing, will that be its own crate in the Aries VCX repo?
Currently, it's so technically, I mean, Rust has these weird terms about crates and projects and workspaces and packages. So it is a separate binary, yes. It's not a separate package, but it is a separate binary.
Okay. Are you guys thinking about turning the client into a library instead of a binary?
Uh, right now, it's the same code base. So right now, I'm using the client only to test the mediator server. So it's not like a full-fledged, I mean, having it as an independent entity isn't a prime goal right now, so that's a secondary consideration. Right now the main goal is to make the server functional, so the client is just like a sibling project that goes along with it right now, at least.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. Was that in the scope of the project plan for you guys? I can't remember. The
Actually it wasn't.
Oh,
okay.
it
All good
wasn't, right?
then. All good then.
Yeah, I think it wasn't. Um, yeah.
Cool.
All right. What happened? What's happening? Where did I get? Okay. George, I saw lots of PRs being merged. on
Yeah.
the FFI side. What's going on?
Yeah, so there was 3 pending PRs last week, and they didn't need much more, just a few more back and forths with Swapnil and myself, and yeah, those 3 all got merged. So that was a refactor, sort of a refactor of the app to hide away some of the complexity and just make it more clean. And also just PRs for finishing up the connection within the app, and another one for just cleaning up the scripts. So mostly refactoring work, and finishing up the connection stuff. And yeah, Swapnil and I haven't had a meeting this week. He's been busy. He said he's traveling, which is fine. But yeah, he said that he's currently reading up on the holder side of the issue credential protocol. And yeah, that's what our next meeting will be about. Sort of seeing how we can apply his knowledge and start working on the holder stuff.
Cool. So now the holder. So right. So now there's a connection protocol, and next up will be the issuance, like holder side of the issuance protocol, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Right. I would really want to like try it out on my device. I gotta find some time soon. I'm really excited to see it. So I'll be giving it a shot next week, hopefully. And
Yeah, give these instructions a go in the README, and if there's anything that's too vague or not clear, then just let us know.
okay, we'll do that. All right. So overview of recent work done. So we had contributions from Nayan. Those 2. One was to something we discussed last week, to changing the return tabs of the Unpack message wallet interface. And the other one was kind of linking to that as kind of just additional improvement, deleting some code, uncluttering it here a little bit. So thank you, Nan, for this one. Next, we have completed. Bogdan has completed like lint fixes across the code base. I think that's, in terms of lint fixing, that's I think covered everywhere. And then we had just merged freshly this morning the issue credential v2, and I saw update from you, George, that just this morning as well, that you reported interop with Akapai. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. So I did a kind of high level overview. Since it works with Akapai and Bogdan had like good is probably most qualified here to review this as an author. I kind of trust it, but yeah, I gave it a overview and looked good to me, so I got it merged. And I guess that's what has been done. There's still a number of stuff in progress and in review. So linking to that v2, still the protocol implementation itself, that's still pending, and I would like to have a good look on that myself. And I see it's failing right now, so I guess there's still some tweaks to be done.
Might be lint stuff.
Yeah, okay, I see the to-do list. So is this all the stuff you want to get addressed in this PR?
Yeah, so those, I want to get them done in this PR, but probably after your reviews, like unit testing. I don't really want to flesh them out too much if you guys come back and say that this is all wrong. Yeah.
I see. All right. Well, I'll try to I'll prioritize this. There's lots of things to do. I'd like to do the the Unify demo, but I think this should get a higher priority. It's quite important and valuable.
Cool. Yeah, I just rebased that one as well. So yeah, it used to have all the message stuff in it as well, but now that that's merged, it's rebased.
Yeah,
So
right. Cool. So a bit cleaner. Okay. Any other comments here from you, George, or anyone else?
Yeah, are you thinking we should get the whole maintainer team to review this one, or 2 out of 3, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, let's make this so in terms of like priorities and kind of epics ongoing, the main one right now we're busy with is the completing the critic stuff, just making sure we can get safely rid of it. So it's some internal testing, but I'm getting ahead of myself in agenda, but yeah, it's somewhere mentioned here. So right now prioritizing this piece of work so we could hopefully get rid of VDR tools and on credits early next week. And then after that, I think we can make this another top priority, get this reviewed, and yeah, I'll just make some progress here. This is super cool.
Cool. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, where did we left? Connection protocol in review. There's a small PR from myself pending for review. It's not big. It's mostly removing stuff. So that kind of PR. Removing, basically mainly removing automatic problem report sending from connection protocol, which is something which is now not happening in any of the protocols. Hence, I think it's justified to remove it from connection protocol as well. And instead, this PR is adding one function, encrypt message, which simply encrypts message for the connection. So then it can be sent manually by the consumer. This is especially useful for Nayan, where she doesn't want to send the response, the encrypted message over HTTP, the HTTP request, but rather just a HTTP response to request received on Mediator. So if you guys can have a look at this one, it's not big. That's pending. And then in progress, few things. Well, wait, yeah, this is a review. This is in progress. So release 059, I'm expecting today, tomorrow. In the meantime, I suppose some smaller PRs can be still merged in, even the connection protocol, I think. But I would like to avoid any like bigger changes into 059. And then we have started the discussions about a repo reorg we mentioned last week. So Bogdan has proposed some ideas how to go about it, and we discussed here. So I guess this is kind of final proposition state. We found out our consensus. I know, George, if you had a chance to take a look at this, if not, we can kind of go through it quickly now and just see what you think about it.
No, I haven't had a look at it. Looks
so
good.
The main idea is like make the main page of the repo a lot simpler. So put everything under a single crates directory. Me and Miro were a fan of this idea. Bogdan was not so happy, but we over voted him. So you can cast your vote as well here. What do you think about this? But the rationale was to make the main page a bit simpler. But then even within the crates directory, there is some restructuring. So for example, having this is pretty much the same, I guess. But right now, UniFFI would be under wrappers. but I noticed under the UniFi Aries v6 currently there's two directories. There's the wrapper itself and the demo. So perhaps the demo could actually go under the agents because it's essentially a mobile agent, right? And similar way I would see with the Nyan's mediator. As in the mediator agent, it could also end up under the agents directories with all the agents. And then some of these are pretty much the same, RZ6, RZ6 cores without change for now. But then all these DID related crates goes under, common directory, same with DidDoc, and putting the legacy stuff, also grouping it together, grouping the Aries messages stuff. And I think this is something we already have. So yeah, that's kind of the highlights.
You guys might have already talked about this, but does this mean that there's a bit of non-Rust code within the crates directory? The node stuff and potentially the Unify Android stuff.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. So
yeah, that maybe feels a little wrong.
It does, yeah. I initially wanted to put the wrappers outside, but it is a very good point, though. And I mean, another thing worth considering is that, and I mentioned that to Patrick and Mira, was crates might not be the best name for that root directory. Like if you change that to something else, then the problem with intermingling Node.js and Rust code is not there anymore.
Does it seem wrong as well to like call some of those binaries a crate? Like the simple message relay is a binary. Yeah, that's my only thoughts.
Yeah, I mean that's what I didn't really like about this root directory thing. We have a lot of stuff, and it's pretty hard to classify everything into one common thing, and it doesn't really, in my opinion, serve any real purpose. Like, okay, it's going to make the landing page a bit smaller, and I mean considerably smaller, but we're not like we're having some business website. It is a coding repository, right? So the main, in my opinion, the main goal behind this was to kind of pack some things together that sort of belong together, just to make it easier to navigate through the directory structure, because the list was becoming very long. So
yeah, like grouping together the did stuff, for example, is great.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, not so sure about some of the wrapper stuff, or rather having all that different code, different languages together under the crates. Yeah. So what was your idea instead, Bogdan? Was it just to keep them at the base level?
Yeah, to keep them at the base level, pretty much with the structure that's in there now within the crates directory, but just keeping them at the base level. I don't know, it kind of makes sense to me, and it's not like we have a lot of other stuff at the base level that people would get confused about. There are some minor files, of course, and maybe that docs directory, but apart from that, it's fairly intuitive. And yeah, this way, okay, so you can see the agents, which again should pretty much be self-explanatory. We have a separation between tools, legacy code, the wrappers that we have. To me, it's a perfectly fine repository organization.
Yeah, I think I agree. Was the crates directory, was that inspired from RETH, that repo?
I don't know,
yeah,
Patrick posted something.
It was.
Do you know if they had a similar problem where they're sort of combining multiple languages and
No,
binary.
probably. I don't think they have multiple languages. No, but I don't know about binaries. It's a very modular kind of project.
The thing is that from what I've seen, they have additional things at the top level, you know, besides that, this crates or library or whatever they're building. So for them, it makes more sense to kind of compartmentalize things like that, like the coding or the actual Rust libraries are in one crates directory, but then they have additional things. I don't know. I can't find the link anymore. Maybe Patrick can bring it up, but because I wanted to have another look.
Yeah, they have they have been read apparently, which is I guess that's the main binary. They have crates. I know it's etc. This looks like some other stuff, for example. Have docs, testing.
They have a book. They have assets. Those are
Yeah, but I
probably
guess
for
the
different
main code is here,
applications.
but I don't know what it encapsulates. But anyway, I mean, we don't have to. I just it was in kind of it looked clean, so I kind of got inspiration from there suggesting this. But honestly, you guys are bringing some good points here. And yeah, as Bogdan used to be, we are not like building a business website, so it's a code repository. So I'm kind of leaning back, like perhaps you guys at some point, perhaps we can bring some of it up, or at least at minimum this name seemed to not really serve the purpose very well in our case. But I guess given the points you guys made, I guess I'll be keen to move it a level up as well, back to the roots.
Okay, cool. Yeah, with this PR for it, the Unify stuff, you don't have to worry about separating that out into putting the Android app somewhere else and the crate separate. I can do that with Swapnil after this is through. It might be a little more complicated to change the scripts and whatnot.
Yeah,
So
we
maybe
can do it like also like don't feel any rush about it. Even this change, what we are kind of discussing here, it's more of a discussion phase yet, trying to find the overall consensus how to go about it. But implementation wise, it just whenever happens to be good opportunity, then we'll do this. So we wouldn't break many PRs. And I guess right now the main thing, like a bunch of stuff has been merged actually. I think the did exchange. I think perhaps we should get merged did exchange as well. Oh, that's just addition. That might be easy to fix, I guess, for Mira. So maybe we don't have to worry about it too much. The credential issuance v2, that's also addition mostly, so that should be also easy to sync up if we do any reorg. And other than that, as well, those changes are modifying or deleting, I think those should be merged before. So yeah, I have this another PR I didn't mention, some test refactoring. This kind of PRs, I guess the ones which are modifying the existing code base. Let's get merge those, and then unless there's anything else, any modification kind of PR pops out, and we can actually implement and reorganize, reshuffle everything whenever it's
There will be something regarding that profile work that I'm
the
doing.
profile work from you.
Yeah, I just pushed the PR now. I gotta rebase it, and let me warn you, this thing will be painful. and it's barely even scratching the surface. So anyway.
All right. Yeah, so that actually brings us to, I don't have it here, do I? Planned. I guess the work you are the the generification, if you will, you started working on. So I guess I can, given what you said now, I guess I can move it to in progress now. But maybe to share with George, I'm not sure we talked about this with George. Can you kind of talk a bit about the changes you're doing?
Yeah, so well, the changes I wanted to do were pretty much just replace some like some of these trade objects with generics, because there's really no point in having them. Because generally agents will just when you pass an instance of a wallet, you don't necessarily hot swap wallets like that, or I know creds implementations or ledgers or thing like that. Ideally, I guess want to remove the entire profile thing as well, because it's an encapsulation that doesn't really help with anything. But yeah, as I was working on this, it's like the problem is deeply rooted in many corners of the crates that we have, in the sense that we essentially have no design for these things. Like with the arc trade objects thing that's been in the entire workspace, for me at least, and I assume that for anyone that wouldn't really have worked on this for a long time, it's pretty hard to keep track of or even follow the ownership of components. You know, like for instance, in some OnCreds implementations, there are like the wallet is being used, where the wallet, and it's being used in the sense that it's encapsulated within the structure, where it could just be passed in ideally. But intermixing components like this is allowed now and pretty much used everywhere, because we've just been using, like, the code base only has these arc trade objects, and you can get away with pretty much everything. But there's no real flow between how things are supposed to work, because everything references everything. Yeah, so I can't even begin to wrap my mind around how much of a change it will require to actually fix this. But for now, the PR essentially just replaces, or attempts to valiantly attempts to replace a huge part of these trade objects with either concrete implementations of certain types implementing a trait, or just some generics. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm gonna have to, right now I still have some rebases to do apparently. Hopefully that's not going to be too painful. I really wanted to like have this minimal, but it literally span across almost 100 files. And there's really nothing, or not that much to do about it. Although I did kind of work around libvcx, because libvcx is not the first class citizen. So I kind of worked around that by re-implementing the traits over the arced trait objects, to kind of get around with just passing those, because there it's just, it becomes even more painful. And even with the mocking stuff and those, I don't know, it's just madness. Yeah. Again, I'm not even sure where, like, how necessarily to go about this in iterative steps. I obviously have one great idea, and that's rewriting everything, but we don't really do that here. Yeah, the second idea, I guess, would spawn across multiple steps of adapting code and rewriting traits, and then rewriting the rewrites to kind of make them better, and then rewriting tests. I don't know. We're pretty much gonna have to see. Right now, the intention is, like I said, to kind of set the groundwork for the generics thing, and because that's going to allow the like further work to be done. And yeah.
All right, let's see what comes out of this. It's already a big PR. It's growing.
Honestly, I don't. Yeah, one other thing. Honestly, I don't even know if we can actually pull this off like this. I mean, like I said, everything is so intertwined, and the problems are so deeply rooted that I don't know. It's gonna be difficult.
Well, you are
But
kind of doing like two, I guess, modifications here, right? One is removing the arcs, and I'm wondering.
I mean, removing the arcs is really not like, in some places I had to leave the arcs again because of
Mhm.
no ownership, or no clear ownership between components. But where I could remove them and get away with it, I did, because why not? But yeah, the arcs are not the problem. The trade objects are the bigger problem. I mean, the arcs are also the problem, but nevertheless.
Okay, let's see next week. Where are we? Okay, yeah, I moved it to in progress. And we should also get started. Ideally, the better, the sooner. Working on the DTPR 4 implementation, which is similar to DTPR 2 and 3 allegedly. So probably not too much of a challenge. I expect to implement that, given we have already the 2 and 3. And once that is in, I think we can also complete the get the DID exchange completed. And I assume, as I mentioned, I haven't been on the yesterday Aries work group call, but I assume things are moving with the DID-PO4 and DID exchange, kind of community update, AATH testing for DID exchange with DID-PO4. So then we can get some interrupt results, hopefully, with this thing. And yeah, that's bring us to the end. Any point for me to add here, guys?
I'll probably start the presentation V2 messages work in the next week. It'll be very similar to the issue credential. And then, yeah, as soon as we're happy with or arrive at some consensus on how to implement the issue of V2 stuff, that PR I have up for review, then I'll start on the presentation V2 protocol as well. But yeah, I'll do the same thing. One PR for messages, one for the actual implementation.
Yeah, so you can expect like more reviews to land on, because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time next week for the issuance. PR, since it's quite big, I'll definitely need some more time from all the reviewers. And we want to get the DDX CredX stuff completed and VDR tools removed, and I suppose that once we do that, it'll be a lot easier to contribute, or is it to contribute the Aries ASCAR? I'm not sure I'm not sure exactly how the dependency tree is gonna change, but it's surely gonna be a lot thinner. So I don't know, there's gonna be still some challenges, some challenges with dependencies. But well, if you opt out of Because if you, I guess it depends. If the ASCAR implementation is in the repo, it doesn't matter whether stuff is feature flagged or not, right?
Yeah.
It just matters of whether those two have any conflicts, and I'm not sure about that. But do you know if removing VDR tools gonna help with ASCAR? I know we touched on this before. I don't remember our past conclusions.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty much ready. The only other thing that'd need changing is I'm not sure if they have released a newer version of Indie VDR, but Indie VDR depends on Indie Shared RS, and the previous version or maybe current version of Indie Shared RS that's released has a dependency conflict with Aries ASCAR. So you need, yeah, I sort of have my own chain of forks to get around that. A fork Indie Shared RS, and that fork's being used by my fork of Indie VDR, etc.
Okay, that's hence the issue you were creating 2 weeks ago or so, right?
Yeah, I'm three
we
forks
should
deep.
we should check on that, how it's going, or if it's moving forward, as that would help this. It would be great to have ASCAR in the code base, and perhaps then we could even use it on a mediator or stuff like that, maybe with the UniFFI too, right? Like, why not to run the new components with ASCAR if we can?
Yeah, they've merged in the fix. It's just that they need to release a tagged version of Indie Shared RS and then re-release Indie VDR with the newer tag and then tag that. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Okay. Anything else?
So a question in the same vein. So I don't expect it to make much sense, but is it possible to upgrade the Lebanon indie dependency of SQLX to a higher version,
A
or will
great
that
point.
happen as well?
Yeah, that's a great point. And again, yeah, it's this dependency stuff. Yes, I think it will be the reason why it's so currently in the wallet, VDR Tools wallet implementation is using old version of SQLX, which is even forked. It's even fork version, and it's difficult to upgrade it because the latter versions of SQLX, I think, have conflicts with the VDR Tools unoncreds dependencies, I believe. But once we get rid of VDR Tools unoncreds, which should be in a few days, hopefully, then upgrading SQLX should be easier. And yeah, similar with ASCAR, that might also be easier.
Nice.
All right. Bogdan, you have something?
No, should I?
No. Just making a complete circle, just in case. All right, then I think we are done here. So thank you, and have a good week.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
You.